Hey, welcome back to STS. This is a show about parkour, and the both of us have been not only practicing parkour, but also coaching it for a long time, and we feel like we bring a different point of view to a lot of topics going on.
In today's episode, we talked about lifting weights for parkour and why we do it. We also talked about leaving no trace at your spots and some news around that. And we finished up with talking about Pasha's new trick.
If you could share this episode, that would mean a lot to us. We don't put up ads anymore on STS, and the only way that we can really grow and reach more people is if you help us out. So please, once again, share the episode, subscribe if you haven't already, drop us a like, leave us a comment, and without further ado, let's get into today's talk. Have you calculated how much your bench press is relative to your body weight?
No, I haven't done that yet. Should we do that now?
Yeah, let's do it now, live.
All right, so we just did 1 rep max testing this morning, and well, for bench.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wait, how do I do this? I have this math anxiety right now.
Well, what's your weight right now?
I'll say one.
Is it like 150? Because it's easy math.
150, yeah.
Okay, so it's like 1.25 times your weight, or no, or maybe it's like 1.5. You would do 200. Yeah, it's probably 200 divided by 150. I think. Yeah, 1.33. There you go.
Repeating, 1.33. Repeating.
I just saw the number there. 225 would be 1.5. 1.5 for bench is hard. I can't bench that much more than you.
Yeah,
I really can't.
I actually realized that when I saw your number, I was like, wait a minute, that's only but benching feels like any additional weight feels like a huge jump in difficulty.
I've always struggled with bench. I can dip and I can overhead press. Any other type of push you want me to do, I can perform relative to my weight and everything way better than bench. And it's not that I haven't worked at benching either. It's also like just super discouraging. Like anytime I try to put any time onto it. So I don't know.
Well,
I'm either gonna. I have 2 roads ahead of me. I can either keep doing bench press and maybe throw, like I said today, maybe throw in some incline there because I think that might help me, or I can just never bench press again.
Quit altogether.
And just do dips.
That's another option.
Probably better for parkour anyways.
Yeah. It feels, well, that's the thing is like, if number don't go up, feel sad.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Try to lift big rock and don't make it.
So number didn't go up for you. Or did it go up relative to your no, not your all-time best, but
my all-time best for bench press is, so if you lift, you're going to be like, oh. If you don't lift, you're going to be like, wow, that sounds like a lot of weight. 225. And it was just because like that's like a milestone. So
And you tried that today.
I tried that today and failed. Yeah. So did not hit my best. I don't know. I have a weird stick. Not at the chest, like I get it up a bit, and then it feels like I can't press in the direction that I want to.
Maybe you gotta do some board presses.
Yeah, but then again, like, do I want to? And I guess this kind of leads into the topic we should be talking about here, because someone asked it in the last episode about just why are you lifting weights for parkour? And I would ask myself, like, why would I spend so much time on bench press? So part of it is just as a separate hobby, and actually part of the reason for bench press specifically, why I'm doing it with you guys for this period stuff. Well, I gave some options for pressing exercise, like we're doing dips and stuff, but everyone seemed to want to do bench. And so we're trying to throw in a pressing exercise just so that you're not, we're in like a general physical preparation phase, so we're trying not to be like over specialized because parkour is heavy pulling. So if you are, just for health and just overall, I feel like you should be able to press. You should be able to press stuff. Just if you're strong in so many other ways, you should be able to press. There's maybe some, what word did we use? Anecdata for the improvements on parkour with bench press. I have noticed that people that are good at bench press also have quite a good Kong. Take that for what you will, but I can.
But is it the same exact movement? No, not at all.
No.
Right.
I'm also not very good at Kongs and not good at bench press.
Whoa. So therefore, we can conclude. I'm very happy with how my bench went today. I thought I would be under 200 pounds on my bench, and I nailed it. 200 for the win.
That was cool, man.
It was the slowest, ugliest lift ever. I did the stanky leg during the lift, but you know what? Counts.
It's a max.
It was a max. Yes, it's ugly.
No.
But yeah, like I like what you alluded to there was that it's like a separate hobby, and I don't. It's not that I'm going into bench pressing thinking I'm gonna get so good at parkour by doing this, but it's a general physical strength like milestone to like improve your bench. So I think. Right now, I've never really had an interest in benching. I actually lost a ton of interest in benching when I first did it over a decade ago now. And so, especially because I didn't make improvements after the program we did, and now I actually finally did make improvement. And I don't know, we haven't been benching that much, so I could probably go heavier with more practice. It is quite technical. I think it's the most technical of the three like major barbell lifts.
It shouldn't be, but it always feels that way for me. It just simply doesn't feel like. Again, I mentioned like I can press in a variety of other areas and do well, and bench press. I just feel like I'm not strong.
Yeah.
But I think one of the questions too that we got from one of our listeners last week. Before we start losing the parkour audience, we can get this back to
tie it back to the jumps.
Back to parkour. Is injury prevention, and I think a lot of people get into lifting because, well, one, they're thinking about their parkour output, and then the second one is injury prevention. I just kind of want to make this clear here that I think lifting weights, and again, this is more anecdata, which is just a funny word we're borrowing for anecdotal, is that it can make you stronger. It can perhaps make you stronger in positions that you don't hit doing parkour all the time, such as like squatting deeper, so that your joints and your connective tissue are a bit more accustomed to those positions. But really the focus of strength training as it relates to parkour should be on output. It should be on trying to build stronger muscles so that you can increase output in jumping, pulling, whatever it may be. I don't know if you feel differently.
I have some thoughts about some injury prevention. There is something to be said for like putting on a bit of muscle as protection. For a sport that involves like throwing your body at things.
Yeah.
But like, I mean.
Could just get fat too.
Yeah, you could, I guess. But okay, so shoulder rolls.
Yep.
Right? A lot of people are quite bony. Maybe their spine is exposed or there's a lot of bony protrusions on their body. If they add a little bit of muscle mass to their back, they're going to be more cushioned when they're doing shoulder rolls. And if they're hitting a wall or like hitting the ground, they're maybe going to be a little bit more likely to like take that impact more pleasantly than just striking their bone, right? So, it's a little bit of armor to have for when you're doing parkour, but I agree with you that the focus for me with lifting isn't on injury prevention. It's if anything, it's actually to improve my output, and part of output is also like being able to take a drop or a jump, the landing on a drop or a jump or something or any of those things with. Or like just take impact with more confidence because you have a little bit more ability to resist against the forces that you're dealing with.
Yeah. I think one of the things I mentioned too that maybe was confusing last week was how I'm basically stepping off the gas with deep squats, like removing them entirely from programming because they're aggravating patellar tendonitis for me. The patellar tendonitis also gets aggravated through jumps, so it also gets aggravated through doing parkour. The bigger thing there too, though, is that I could sit in a body weight squat just fine. It's the added load, and so added load through landing a jump or added load through squatting and then added range of motion. So it's not that I'm getting injured through strength training, it's that I'm actually like really strong in a squat. And because I'm really strong in a squat, I have to lift more load if I'm trying to improve. I can't improve doing lower weights in a squat.
Yeah.
So it's not the same for anyone else. I've never, and I've trained a lot of people how to squat. I've never taken someone who's not doing squats and then put them in that position, and they just all of a sudden started getting like knee pain. If anything, it's actually the opposite. It's the opposite. It tends to the load, the slow way. So we're talking injury prevention, almost like sometimes injury therapy can be going through weighted exercises because the load is slower. You can pay attention more to how the joint moves. When you land a jump, sometimes people just crumple, like their spine dumps, their knees can go in all sorts of directions, there's twisting that occurs. You see that right away when someone's squatting, and you can slow it down and help them correct it. And hopefully those corrections like lead over to parkour, right? So that's like another big reason for me and why I've still advocated for people and have advocated in the past is slowing some of these movements that aren't the same. So squatting is not the same as jumping or landing a jump, but it's similar, and it's gonna, whatever issues you have with a landing there where there's like asymmetries, I was almost gonna say imbalance, but I don't like that word, asymmetries in your landings, that's also gonna show up in your squat. And it's going to show up in your deadlift and these things. And those are easier exercises to correct than it is to correct like someone landing a jump.
Yeah, because of the speed or complexity.
Yeah.
And when you're lifting heavy weight, you're more likely to go slower, although you're trying to go fast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with all those points. I do think that the most bang for your buck, if your goal is to improve at parkour, the most bang for your buck is going to just be to train more parkour. Mm-hmm. But adding in barbell lifts or just strength training in general, gymnastic strength training is really great as well for your upper body development. Adding those things in is going to improve your capacity for load. And improving capacity for load means you can take more impact, you can potentially produce more force, which means a bigger jump or a bigger dyno or whatever it is that you're doing. And
someone just yelled in the alley behind us. You probably couldn't hear it, but we definitely could.
We did, yeah. So yeah, those are all, like a lot of people probably think about like lifting and strength training and parkour as being a waste of time. And I could totally see how they believe that. And you could make the argument that it might be for some people. Like some people, I don't know if you remember, but years ago when we were down in Seattle, you did like a weight training clinic, and it was the first time ever that Dylan Baker and Brian Orozco like lifted weights. I think it was those guys.
Okay.
And like they without additional training, I might be mistaking this, but without any like prior training on barbell lifts, they were already stronger than 99% of the people in the room. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, like is adding more weightlifting into their onto their training going to really make those improvements in their parkour? Maybe not. It might actually be a waste of time and effort. But I personally had incredible like development of my output and my capacity for load by doing weight training that I wouldn't have gotten if I had just done.
Then you also retained. So even when you stopped lifting as much, you retained for a while.
For a long time, yeah. Yeah. So
it does work.
It does work, yeah. So if you feel like you're not able to jump as far as your friends, you might actually benefit from lifting a barbell, a heavy one.
Yeah. Also, doing more maximal jumps.
Yes.
Is probably even like Callum from Store, like he's said this in posts in various places and things, and I've been a proponent of the same philosophy for a while, which is if you're not actually putting in time to do max effort jumps, and a lot of times that means removing walls and structures and just doing jumping exercises for maximum distance on the ground. If you're not already doing that and you're looking for something to improve your jump, that should be the first thing you do.
Yeah.
And then you can look towards the barbell after. It has also been there's plenty of particularly like in the Eastern Bloc methods from way back of coupling and contrasting lifting and jumping. It's been a practice in strength and conditioning for a long time, so it's quite well documented, quite well researched that particularly doing both will yield more results than just doing one or the other in terms of like jumping output. So if you're actually doing both of them in some sort of training context, I don't know if necessarily it needs to be contrast training. It could also just be doing them both in the same session or the same week. You're going to get better results doing both than just one or the other.
Yeah. Well, and when it comes to maximal jumps, is like in parkour, you're very rarely ever going to experience a max effort jump, because the nature of the sport is to add environmental complexity or technical complexity in some ways. Like maybe you have to hurdle over something into a running takeoff, and it's like, well, that's by its nature not going to be your biggest ever running jump. It might feel like it's really big, might feel like you're putting a lot of effort in, but if you strip it down to the bare elements, you're probably going to be able to jump way further without the added complexity of the environment or the technical components of it. So jumping, I mean, we've done some videos on how to improve your jump without weights, but one of the main things that you could do is just literally just do a broad jump, standing jump from as far as you can on the floor, and just try to do that often. And then when you do that a bunch, you're likely to improve the size of your broad jump.
Yeah.
But if you're only jumping between two walls, the psychological and technical complexity of it is going to limit how far you can actually do it.
Yeah, I think it was I probably made a post, but I do remember there was also an article where I said, your first step is measure it.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to improve something? Okay, let's get a measure of what you're trying to
establish a baseline.
Yeah, it drives me crazy how much parkour heads will just go by feel. It's like, oh, I feel like I'm more and it's not that there's no value to that, but yeah, if you're really trying to determine if you're getting better or not, you need some movements or some exercises to have as a baseline. And I guess one way to look at it too is like if you have a standing pre that felt like your max, if you can hit it with say you don't have time or you're just not interested in jumping on the ground, but you got a set of walls that's maybe close to where you live that you've hit before and it's close to a max. Well, you can look at how much higher you can land. There's other ways to go about it, but what I'm trying to say is that there does need to be some sort of measure, some sort of standard you're going off of. You can't just be traveling the world going by how you feel. Well,
when you say how much higher you can land, I just want to clear that up. You're referencing how high your hips are in the squat on your landing.
Yes.
So if you're like landing with your butt touching your heels, but you're able to still stay on, try to land with your butt not touching your heels, or with your legs in your hips in a higher position, or your legs straight even, right? So that's a way to improve that output without actually improving the size or changing the size of the gap.
Talking about changes.
Is this a segue that I'm sensing right now?
Yeah, talking about changes and changes to spots.
Oh, wow. This is a good segue.
You showed me a post from, I guess last week. What is the name of the account? It's Every Academy? Is it? ADD Every Academy. Not pleased at how some of y'all out there are changing the manpower gap.
Okay, the account is at ADD Academy Every, spelled EVRY if you don't know how Every is spelled. And yeah, so the post is basically a shaming of the people who are going to the manpower gap in Every, France, and they are modifying the spot. And it's actually not so much the shaming the people who are modifying the spot because they're modifying it, it's that they're not picking up after themselves. And so it's basically become a dumpster. Actually, we talked about this on STS a while back, but Choke, he corked across Manpower, but in order to do that, he set up, or his team set up a set of pallets with plywood on top to make the surface level so it's easier to approach. And we debated this of whether this was cool or not, or whether this is parkour or not, and how much modifying the spot is a good thing. And I think I land all over the map on this depending on the day, but it's actually not about that. More importantly is they didn't break it down afterwards. And so this group of parkour people in France actually went up and broke it down and took it off. And there's also images of them removing mattresses that were used.
The mattresses are crazy.
Yeah, so somebody apparently brought a bunch of mattresses on top of for the landing of Manpower. And and it's I don't know, using mats or mattresses or putting sand in a pile or rocks in a pile might there's an acceptable level of spot modification when you're working on something really hard. But the worst part about this is they're not following one of the central tenets of parkour, which was established very early on, which is referred to as leave no trace. And what we're experiencing now is people who have lost this sense of wrecking a spot or turning a spot into essentially a dumpster where they just leave their crap everywhere.
Yeah, the post here is actually quite funny, and I'm looking at a translation here, but I'm gonna paraphrase here. But they're saying that they're not against that you change the spot to do a world premiere. They said you can do it barefoot, naked, or with your eyes closed if you wish. But they're upset that things are being left behind. And I wanted to kind of approach this actually from trying to put my feet in the shoes of someone who's putting this stuff up there and leaving it. So I'm thinking of, we got a gap at UBC called the Wishbone Gap. It doesn't really need any modification, but let's say we wanted to add more height to it or something. Or actually what would make more sense is putting a mat on the other side so that things could be tried. And this could be a really cool thing. And I think I would actually be coming from the standpoint of, if I leave this here, it doesn't hurt anyone, because who goes up on this roof? So I could see in defense of the people leaving stuff up there, and there doesn't appear to be, when you leave wooden, it says when you leave your wooden pallets or mattresses, it's also a way to encourage unprepared kids to take stupid risks. But it doesn't really say anything to suggest that there was a complaint from the public, which really is what matters in this case the most. I think if we're talking about leave no trace and cleaning up your stuff, maybe I'm missing something here. But just to kind of be the one, I guess I'll defend the leavers of the rubbish in this
bold
case.
Stance, Rene.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I can see it both ways, but let's say I'm trying to defend the rubbish leavers. There doesn't appear to be any public outcry from people opposed to parkour. And I think by leaving that stuff, you're leaving tools is another way to look at it. Like, again, if we left a mat on a roof somewhere, it'd be like, oh yeah, we can go back here anytime, and that mat's going to be there. And, we could use it for whatever we want.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, the tools thing. So first, let me just respond to just tools as a concept, and then I will respond with another point that I think is really important. So the tools part is probably, which was addressed in the post, which is that unprepared teenagers went up, and because the jump was made easier with, these tools, it enabled them to try these jumps and ultimately landed horribly. I think they walked away and they were fine, but you could imagine a scenario where maybe it didn't go fine and somebody's walking away with a broken leg or a concussion or something, and they are responsible for themselves, but without those tools, maybe they wouldn't have done it or tried it. So that's my response.
Still a maybe there.
Okay, so that's my response, but that's something they addressed in the post. But my other important element here that I want to address is that these things are on rooftops and they're left in the elements. And when they're exposed to the elements, they break down, or the mattresses might get moldy or have like weird things growing on them. So it's like when you're when you're just leaving them up on the roof, you're essentially leaving them to rot. And the worse it becomes, the more of an eyesore or a hindrance to the spot it actually becomes, instead of like something that's going to be a tool that enhances it. So when you think about the pallets and the plywood, if you're leaving that up there, maybe they're like, oh, we're going to come back and do something else with the pallet. But there's a point at which it's just like, okay, you're just leaving this wood up there to warp and decay.
The picture of the mattresses is like kind of a hilarious one, because it's just this stack of mattresses, and it's, I'm curious like who put those there and why, and it seems very non-parkour, but again, that's not what this so much is about. And I hear what you're saying about that. I think the pallet thing, that's probably going to last, would have lasted a while. Would have lasted some years, I think, before it went down, depending on the quality of the plywood.
Yeah, that's possible.
I guess
but eventually it's not. Eventually it's going to get to the point where it's not going to be safe. In fact, it might be more. It might make things more sketchy.
Sure. My defense of the tools also comes from, because there's actually a spot in Vancouver where we have two tools that are on top of a little roof.
I know.
Hidden away.
I know one of them. I don't know if I know the other one.
So it's which one are you thinking?
Undercover office spot with the broom.
Yeah. So the broom, but there's also a sheet of plywood. But I don't think we put the plywood up there. But there's like a roof, and it has a sheet of plywood up there and a broom, and we've used the plywood to put over wet spots or dirt, because that's our dry spot.
But
we put it back in its hiding place every time.
And I agree with you there, in that wood is not. But see, so first of all, it's not a super dangerous spot where like you're sending like a potentially life-threatening jump, or you're enabling somebody to do a life-threatening jump like Manpower.
Yeah.
But two, it's also not exposed to the rain. It's literally undercover. It's our undercover spot. So it's out of the way. It's not bothering anybody, and I agree with you there. But this feels different.
It is, yeah. Especially when you look at the pictures of the stuff they had to pack up. So
yeah, and like 10 mattresses or however many there were.
I was trying to come to the defense of the.
I know you're trying to provide the alternative perspective, and I encourage that, because I can't. I struggle with that, but But yeah, this feels different. And if you look at the post, it's very much like these mattresses look grimy and gross, and it's like an eyesore. And I feel like it probably is. I mean, I don't know like the way the spot is laid out, but it sounds like people live in that area. Mm-hmm. And imagine every month you get a group of young men or women going to this spot and like being loud, and when Storer went and Josh is like screaming at the top of his lungs, it's like this probably gets really old.
I can't remember how that went down. Did he end up doing it, or he walked away?
No, he walked away. Oh. But that's an example of like if somebody came to my apartment, and there's actually a little spot right outside my apartment building, mm-hmm. and it was a famous spot, and there was people who were coming on a regular basis to send jumps, and not just send jumps, but like be loud and yell and film it and like maybe modify the spot. I'd be like really annoyed by it.
Would you be, or the non-parkour version of you?
I think I would be kind of annoyed by it.
I think I'd just be like trolling from my balcony.
And I'm sure they get that too, right? But it would be annoying, right? It's like it's also like if my wife works from home, and mm-hmm. it's like she's like on video calls all day. Is she gonna have to deal with somebody like and it's like, I understand this is important for you, mm-hmm. but also have a level of respect for the people who live around you, and I don't know, and I guess I've gotten older over the years, but I feel like I've always tried to have a level of respect for the people around in like if I'm training on their building or if I'm training around them, mm-hmm. Especially if I'm doing so in a respectful manner, to try to come from their perspective on it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like Manpower has just become this like, it's a destination for people to try to send these jumps, and sometimes it's really cool what happens, but I can imagine if it's a regular occurrence and you're living there, that's super freaking annoying, no matter how incredible the things are that are being done.
Yeah. So stop it.
Man. All right, leave a comment below and tell me if I am getting too old and conservative.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is
or if I'm right, maybe you agree with me.
Yeah, I think if I lived above or around a big parkour spot, I would this version of me, the parkour version of me, I would get involved. I think that would be fun.
You go train with them?
Like, probably not train, no. I'm also thinking like the version of me like 20 years from now or something. I would just be like, I can't wait. Sometimes I can't wait I'm just going to be like, I'm going to do hilarious
When I was
stuff.
your age, I used to do stuff like that all the time.
I'm going to, oh man. Yeah. I can't wait to like look old, but just be, I don't know, pulling gags on everybody all the time. That's the future I'm looking forward to. It's just to be the oldest troll around.
I like it.
Yeah. Speaking of the oldest troll around, no, I'm just kidding.
Ooh. No, that's a bad segue. Let's not do that one. Speaking of trolls.
Oh man, we do have one more topic to move on to, if we're ready.
But I feel like we should talk about something else.
Okay.
Because I feel like I don't want to be offending.
I was just trying to make a segue with it.
I know, but people misinterpret what we say all the time on STS and think that we're serious about it.
So we have to go into like a micro topic now?
Yeah, micro topic.
All right,
quick little micro topic.
Try.
So the topic that we're going to be talking about for a micro amount of time is micro topics themselves. Like, are they worth including in STS, or should we?
Those are called tangents.
Yeah.
Side tangents.
Okay. So let's do a little tangent.
A little side tangent.
Little tangerine. Do we have enough time for a tangerine?
Side tangent. I might go to Lisa and Every.
Oh.
I might go.
I've never gone.
I mean, we could go the day after Hal 5. We just do a little forget Belgium and just go over. So the funny thing is, I've had 2 opportunities. I had one in 2007 and one in 2014. I need to go. I go to the place every 7 or 8 years.
You take the pilgrimage, but you don't actually.
Yeah, it happened both times where it was like my friend who I stay with in Paris. He, gave me the opportunity. Said, is this something you want to do? And it's kind of half in and half out because we talked about this the other week when I was talking about traveling and you were saying like other spots you're excited to go to. And I was like, that's kind of one now where I've just kind of grown more appreciation for it. I think some people think I'm crazy that I've been that close a number of times and haven't gone. And it's kind of like, I'm usually the 2 times that I've been to France, I've been to visit a friend. And that's kind of taken priority over going to some spots. But I usually just know in my head, like, what I'm going to get up to in those spots or what I care about. And I've just, especially like last time I went, I just didn't think that I would get too much out of it. But this time, I don't know, I might go take the day trip out there. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think it is worth it to visit the birthplace of parkour, or if I should continue my streak of just avoiding it altogether.
Oh, the thing is, we have to go at some point. Just, it needs to happen. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, 20 years?
Yeah.
20 years of parkour.
Well, this being my 20th year would probably...
I think that kind of makes sense. It's so, like, whenever I think about, like, parkour starting in Lisses, I think it's so freaking cool. Mm-hmm. Like, the origins of it. The fact that there's this giant climbing structure that's just in this tiny town in the outskirts of Paris. And then, like, this group of kids were just like, yeah, we're going to use this to train this new discipline on and just, like, play games of, floor is lava and follow the leader and these psychological games of hanging themselves upside down on this 40-foot tall structure, however tall it is. Yeah. I don't know. Like, to me, it's like it's a perfect storm of events that happened, and it's so cool that parkour like came about in that way. So I've always had this inner desire to go. And visit it and see it and follow the footsteps of the people who were there decades prior.
Yeah, it's like I felt similar. It just didn't line up the last couple of times I went, and so I'm trying. I don't know if this is the time where it's like, okay, it didn't line up the other 2 times that I went to France. So should I just make it line up? Should I make it a priority? And that's the. I guess I'm thinking yes.
Do it.
I think like I have it in my head. I started having it in my head like yes, or this morning. This morning I spoke to my friend and it was just he was talking about how many days I'm going to be there and how much time he has off and stuff. So I think I can make it happen. It's just the other times I went, it just didn't make it happen. Had it as something I could do, and then it just gets to the day. And
just do it. Yeah. Just do it.
All right.
Nike it. No, I mean, you should definitely do it in general. I think it's going to be worth it. It's like going to a museum. Mm-hmm. It's like a living museum.
That's actually what it would be like for me. It's not even, I think, had I gone in 2014, I would have been trying a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Going now, I might, like, there's some challenges I might look at or try or just, think, but for the most part, I'm just going to be walking by stuff and be like, oh, that's how big that is, or small, or whatever. That's what that looks like.
I feel like I would be a kid in a candy shop, like, oh, that's where David Bell did this. Oh, do you remember that one? Oh, cool. The staircase. Look, it's the staircase. And it's like, I have to climb to the top of the dome,
Yeah.
Can't.
I wonder, I think actually, I'm trying to think back, because 2007, when I went, I think it was 2007. I think part of the reason I didn't go, I think I was scared. I think I just didn't want to like let myself down at the time. This is a long time ago, right? So
I think Dylan has had the same experience. Like,
really?
I mean, I think all three of us have thought about it in this way, where it's like, I'm scared I won't climb to the top of the dome when I get there. I'll be too scared or something, and because of that, it's like I'm not doing it. But
now I'm like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter to me whether I do or don't do any parkour when I go there. But in 2007 and maybe a little bit in 2014, I think part of the reason I didn't go is I think that's might be the nail on the head. Is I think I was just basically feeling like I would have to go and perform, and so it's just kind of like a stage fright thing.
Yeah.
Not that anyone ever would have cared, but here we are. Here we are, having not been twice.
Well, I mean, I think part of it's like you don't want to let yourself down, You go to the birthplace of parkour and you don't do the one thing that you maybe wanted to do. But yeah, I think you should do it. You should vlog it. And then you could be worried about what people think of you after that, because then it's going to be documented. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
I could just go and be like a historian.
That would be really cool, actually. It would. I would watch that. Or maybe next year. Maybe next year I'll prioritize going.
Yeah.
Because this year
there's
I don't know if I'm gonna...
There's someone making some noise outside the door right now, and I kind of wanted to get his opinion on the next topic. I don't know if that's a good idea.
Why not?
All right. You want to set it up, and I'll go grab him? This will be quick.
You want me to set what up?
Set up the topic.
Oh, okay. So speaking of traditional parkour, we wanted to talk about the opposite of that, which is the new trick that Pasha just released. He did it today, which is Monday, February 14th. He posted it on Instagram, and it's a really crazy looking new I'll put in quotations trick, because it looks kind of like Kong gainery, but it's not a Kong gainer, definitely. It's not really even a Kong. And it's definitely not a gainer either, unless you consider a weird Cork Zero-like movement to be...
I brought him in.
To be a gainer.
Resident off-axis expert Josh Dowie, who does his research. It is.
Did you just introduce yourself?
Yeah. Just in case they didn't know.
Okay.
It's a Kong gainer Cork 1 set like a 0. So he does essentially a 720, but he 360s both ways, but ends facing backwards. So you would think that would be a 900. But it's a Cork 1 because it's a Cork 0 set. But because he ends facing backwards, it's a Cork 1 because it's a 180 from that cork. I thought it was something called a space baby, which is like, it's basically a flat spin from your back with your stomach facing the sky. But it's not. It's not space baby. Kong gainer, Cork 1, set like 0.
Okay, can we come up with like a shorter name for this? Because I don't want to have to say Kong gainer, Cork 1, set like a 0.
Okay. It will be. Oh Jesus, that's a lot of pressure. It's. Damn, what could it be?
Okay, all right. Well, hold on. So while we think about it,
real quick. Is it a Kong?
No, it's a side vault. I analyzed it because his legs come over the side, so.
But they have to, right? There's no way you're going to be able to Kong into this skill, but it's, for all intents and purposes, I think we can shorten it by saying it's a Kong something.
Yeah, because you also see Kong gainer fulls kind of set like that too. Like both knees will go over one side, cheating like that. I would just call it Kong Cork 1.
Kong Cork 1.
Yeah.
Wait, why is it Cork 1?
Because it is the cork axis, or it is a rotation on the cork axis with an additional 180.
So wouldn't a 1 be like a full?
No, one is 180.
Why? See, okay, this is all right. So here's a all right. So we have 1 is a 180.
Yeah.
So what's a 2?
270.
Okay. All right. So it's not a 2 is not a double. So think about like gymnastics terminology. So I know this is like different sports terminology. So this is the problem that we're experiencing in style and parkour. I think right. There's largely not an agreement on what we call even a cork.
Yeah.
Right. We have cork from tricking, we have cork from skiing, and then we're trying to combine this language into parkour style.
Yeah. I think especially with cork, because we've already established tricking corks as the cork, I think we should specify that it's like a ski, or either call it cork axis or ski cork. I think that would be a good remedy, so we could specify that so people aren't like, oh, cork this, cork what? Like, what's the difference, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of growth in the style realm of parkour to figure out our naming conventions. But I actually do have a question for you, Josh. Do you think he was trying to do a cork 0 and then just ended up, because he has so much height, that he ends up doing the 1?
So knowing Pasha, he doesn't really care what the name is. I think it's more.
His feet.
Yeah, exactly. It's he understands the flip and the axis, and he just wants to land it. Like I am almost 100% sure, like, he doesn't care that it's a cork 1 or that it, like, what the name of any of these axes are. You know, he's probably got his own.
He thinks it's cool.
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing: he captioned it, or he wrote in the description, 1 for the history books or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And so if he doesn't care, why is he saying this is for the history books? And caveat to this, do you think it is for the history books?
Yes. Yeah, I think that this move in particular, it takes at least 2 years of understanding that kind of cork style axis, because Pasha's put in around that amount of work on it, and he's already like a very airwear athlete. And I think if it gets done again, I think that this is like an if trick, it's not like a when trick. I think if it happens again, it would have to be with another person who has put in that amount of work on axis already. Regarding like 1 for the history books, like I think he understands its importance. So although he doesn't care about the naming, I think that the naming is kind of an exclusive part to it that he doesn't care about. But what he does care about is the ripple, or the first, it being the first of its kind. Like I think that's what he cares more about, is giving the culture more things that haven't been there before. If that makes sense.
It does make sense, but also I can't help but watch that clip and think of Verkey's Kong double gainer and compare the two, because I know I haven't been on IG a lot today, so I haven't seen like what kind of like the consensus is of people sharing it and their mind being blown. But I remember Verkey's Kong double gainer, just that being for the history books, one undeniably a big deal of an unlock of something new. That I think part of it too is it's something that had been chased and mentioned, whereas this doesn't feel like something anyone else has been thinking about.
Like nobody wanted it.
yeah, nobody asked for it. Yeah, well, I think I could see more people trying to do cork 0 like moves out of a vault.
Yeah.
It's just whether it happens exactly the way he landed it is up in the air.
Yeah, like especially doing like a cork 1, like his stomach is literally like facing the sky. Like how many athletes feel comfortable doing that, you know? And then there's also a ton of athletes right now, which I'm going to call out pretty soon, that think they're doing cork 0s, but the whole thing is if your hips go over your head, it's not a cork 0. And a lot of athletes, when they're doing their cork 0s, like their head's down here and their hips are up here, so it's like it's not a cork 0. It's like a different thing entirely, which I'm not actually sure what it is. But yeah.
Now you've you may have opened my eyes to something, because I was asking this a cork, like a tricking cork, there does need to be some sort of an inversion.
Yeah,
it's part of it. Like you could still be pretty.
Does there though?
Yeah. You still need your feet should be higher than your head.
Really?
Yeah, I think. Well, not necessarily the feet, but the hips, sideways? Right? Like it's like head and hips. Like for a tricking cork, you're kind of here to here, whereas like you do it here, you're just doing a B twist over your back. But then for a cork zero, it's kind of you're in this kind of area here. Like this is where the cork zero happens. Like in this kind of zone. And then he does his he does his con cork 1 basically here. Like it's like almost a perfect, like as perfect as a cork axis flip
if you're just listening to this right now, you don't see Josh's hands, but he's just kind of doing nonsense with his hands. So we don't go to the YouTube channel if you want to see Josh play with his hands for like a minute.
I'm finger tutting. Frank.
Okay, so. Oh, wow. Okay, but the annoying thing is that we can't really compare a tricking cork and a cork zero, like a ski cork, right? They're so different and they're not really even close to the same skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the distinction is as easy enough as calling it ski cork, or like you can't cork zero from a tricking setup. So cork zero is already a good distinction. And then once you start... okay. No, here it is. You've got cork, dub cork, like trip cork. You've got all those from the tricking side. Whereas with skiing, it's cork 1, 2, 3, 4. So the convention does matter. It's like does the multiplier come before or after? And that's where we'd make that distinction.
So a cork 1 or a cork. A cork 3.
Yeah.
Is a 360.
A 3. Oh. Uh-oh.
See, okay, now this is okay. What?
So it would be
right, because a cork 1 is a 180, a cork 2 is a 270.
Yeah,
cork
well,
3
technically,
is not.
I think a cork 1 is actually it's considered a 540, because with skiing axes, and oh my god, like shoot me if I'm wrong about this, because Gabe just taught me about this. I learned about every single axis when I was in LA.
Wait, who's Gabe?
So Gabe from the Beans, shout out Gabe Leneveau. I think that's how you say their last name. Gabe taught me every single axis. There's cork, rodeo, flat spin, and then space baby, where your stomach's facing the sky. That's kind of an interesting one. And then front flip, back flip, and all those ones. And then I think there's Lincoln too, which is tunnel essentially. But yeah, cork is. I can't necessarily describe it. Also, what was the question?
So I asked if a cork 3 is a 360, but then you said it's technically a 540 or something? Or a cork 1 is a 540? I
think cork 1 is technically a 540 because it's a cork rotation plus 180. Like with those skiing axes. Oh, that's right. So with the skiing axes, the flips and the rotations are counted the same. Does that make sense?
Nope.
So if I do a front flip.
Yeah. 360.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because you're a 360 on the front flip axis.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't do so well with words. I think someone needs to make a video with some slow-mos and a title on each one, because that would help all of us old people out a whole lot.
There is a guy on Instagram, and I was actually trying to find him today.
Is it a ski person, or is it
parkour guy? And he uses parkour examples.
Okay.
But I've heard to an extent there are some things he gets wrong because he's using parkour as an example. Because with parkour we are somewhat limited because we are dealing with hard ground, and therefore it's hard to get these things perfect. Whereas with skiing you have so much airtime.
So I think I've seen him on Instagram
with the microphone, right?
Yeah, he talks about like rodeos.
Yeah,
where rodeos are like backflips, but like kind of steezed out and angled. But then there's also the rodeo position of like the grabbing your ankles behind you, and it's like we got to figure out what we're calling these things.
So what is a rodeo with the rodeo grab?
Yeah,
double dodeo.
Double dodeo. I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I've simultaneously learned so much and nothing at all just now from our conversation with Josh.
Beans, don't shoot me, please. I tried to learn.
So, but I think this is an important conversation because we have to decide what naming convention we're going to go with, whether it's with the skiing naming convention or tricking naming convention, or we come up with a new one entirely because we are not skiing and we're not tricking.
True.
As much as Beans wants to ski with their switch walking and
which I think is sick, but I think it is as simple as numeric before or after to make that distinction between tricking and skiing.
But even like rodeo, right? Like rodeo is another problem.
Yeah,
and
but you don't see rodeo
grab
grab necessarily in parkour, but then if you
until we do,
which then I think we would say like rodeo something rodeo grab. Good luck, commentators.
Yeah, okay, so I actually would really like to hear...
Isn't that going to be you?
Yeah. Good luck, me.
I would really like to hear the opinion of the Beans characters on this topic.
They're human beings.
Human beings.
I think of people as characters because I'm living a movie and I'm the main character and everyone else is just characters.
That's a very psychological way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, and probably an unempathetic one. So, but no, I would like to hear the perspective of the Beans cast.
Yeah. I think Gabe would be the one.
Gabe would be the one to talk to you? Okay.
For sure.
Because I mean, especially with the whole Beans, what do I call this?
A collective?
Well, no, their this is a bad word for this, but movement. Mm-hmm. Their campaign to use skiing like moves in parkour. I'm curious what their perspective is, if they're sticking with skiing names just because like that's where they learned it from, or if they have any ideas on how we can start naming things in a way that regular folk can understand. Mm-hmm. Because not everybody follows skiing or understands that. And until Beans becomes more of a mainstream way of doing parkour, or their style becomes a more mainstream way of doing parkour, we'll never understand it.
Yeah. I think we've opened up a can of worms with adding ski access to parkour. Like it is now like access has completely opened up, and now it's kind of just up to us to kind of trace it back to where it was, because we can't. Although we could try to name it, I think it might come off as false because we didn't invent it, right? It is something that already exists, so we have to take what exists and apply it to our culture now. Like I don't think that the way would be to rename them, because then I don't know, then we run into ridiculous names like Rocket Boy or whatever. Like Rocket Boy's a bad example, but
no, I see what you're saying. So
yeah.
the problem is that it already has a name and a culture, and so by renaming it, we're potentially not giving credit to the original culture.
Exactly.
But the problem is we have these culture clashes. Parkour is already a conglomeration of other cultures.
Yeah.
We use the term dino. We stole from rock climbing. We use the term cork or gainer or whatever, right? Like these are all moves that existed before parkour existed.
Yeah. Well, more and more I've been finding, like, as parkour evolves, that parkour may not necessarily be a sport. Parkour may be a category of movement, and you can kind of take this and go to town with it and kind of.
Which town we going to? Let's go.
We're getting weird here.
You can get real
Parkour
weird with it and say
sport,
like
it's a movement.
Discipline. Well, it's like I think that parkour could actually over time end up being like a class of movement. Like there's like walking, running. There's sport. There's
It's like in video games, there's a parkour mechanic.
Yeah, exactly. It's but kind of, yes. It's like I think parkour is actually an umbrella. It's not a modularity of sport. It is akin to sport in the sense that it's its own genealogy. Like sport has basketball, tennis, this stuff where there is commonalities of ball and points, and then parkour is its own umbrella where it contains, free running, and it borrows from climbing, and it borrows from skiing, and all of these things. It's kind of become its own genealogy.
Yeah, but I think skiing is a great example of an analogous sport to parkour, in that there's so many different ways to pursue skiing, and the new thing right now is freestyle skiing, which is all these tricks and done in parks and things like that, including grinds and switch riding and stuff. But there's all types of like more traditional forms of skiing, like downhill skiing. There's
moguls.
There's moguls.
Yeah.
There's aerials, which is actually more traditional flipping in ski culture.
Yeah.
There's also there's all types of ski racing, but there's also backcountry and the more purist kind of skiing that exists. So then there's so many things that fit under the skiing umbrella. And then you also have snowboarding, which is like a different sport, but still pretty close in uses the same environments.
Like almost like tricking to parkour, right?
Yeah.
Ish. Similar somewhat environments. And this all makes it that much more offensive that FIG makes parkour a subset of gymnastics, because parkour is its own umbrella, as gymnastics is its own umbrella. It's like parkour is not just one thing that fits under the umbrella of gymnastics, because that would be confining it so much.
It's almost like if FIS, the skiing federation, came in and took over parkour because parkour guys were doing
ski tricks.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, we're using things that are gymnastic-like, but the apparatus is totally different. The environment is always different. The culture is different, and it has a completely different origin and genealogy. So, yeah, okay. So, are you okay down there? You doing all right?
I'm friggin' dying on one knee right now.
I had a feeling. So,
but hey, I did want to say that the number. I kind of just felt like I just was in the middle here of trying to make sure we could hear Josh. But I feel like what you said, which I didn't realize or know, the number happening before cork or after cork being what makes the difference between if you were doing the ski variation or if you were doing the tricking variation. It's still... There's a small sect of people in the world that are going to be able to parse that. But that's also the nature of freestyle moves in general, like without even bringing in the skiing moves. Like we already got so many different names for, like I think I was talking to you the other day about push gainer versus gate flip and how they're kind of starting to look like the same move when people do them.
Ginger.
Or ginger
flip. But what is that?
What is that?
But it's just what I'm...
And why are you talking about my people?
I think that misname was actually from Toby doing them. I think people probably called it that.
Yeah. Sounds probably right.
Toby and Josh Eden from Tempest. I think the two of them were doing that a lot, and then I think that kind of came up as slang. Parkour history.
Anyway, one of my knees is falling asleep right now.
All right, are we going to kick Josh out now?
I think we need to. If we can go back to Pasha's new trick.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on that?
Very rare trick, super hard to do, near perfect axis.
Well, thank you, Josh, for the analysis of Pasha's Kong Cork 1 set like a Cork 0.
Yeah, you could just call it Kong Cork 1.
Okay.
KC1.
Also, give us a quick plug.
Check out the movement on Instagram. It is a weekly parkour wrap-up show inspired by Thrasher's skate line and also the comedian Andrew Schultz. It's like the flow show or like Jam Movement's weekly wrap-up, but funnier, and it's going to stick around longer. So check that out.
Yeah, it's like this except for entertaining.
No, this is long-form, deeply thought continuous entertainment and joy for parkour nerds.
That's almost as much of a mouthful as Cork 1 set like a Cork 0.
Also, this is, if they're watching this on YouTube, where can they find you on YouTube?
Yeah, I guess they could look me up at Josh Dowie on YouTube. I put all my clips up there, and you can check out the full episodes of The Movement on the Movement playlist on Josh Dowie.
And we'll link those both below. All right, thanks, buddy.
Peace. Thanks, guys.
No problem. Yeah, thanks for that helpful analysis.
Did that bring any light to it? Kind of.
Yeah.
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 Talk to Gabe though. Gabe knows it all, front to back. Like,
okay.
We'll answer any question that you have about Access.
Great.
Yeah.
We're not getting any of that, but
it's
okay.
Audio.
But, hey,
might have picked up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta put my leg. Did you get Brandon's message about my feet?
I did. Well, he didn't send it to me, but I saw it on his store.
Yeah.
On his store. Yes. I got confused. I got crossed brain cells. I saw it on his story, and that was really weird.
Yeah. So a couple of things of how I reacted to this morning. So apparently, I was actually, funny thing is, I was looking just yesterday. I was looking at Height Drop, and I was comparing viewership. You caught me. Our episode, in terms of recent episodes on Height Drop, is up there.
Oh, good.
It's really far up there.
That's awesome.
So you can check us out with Dylan Poland, Vinny Fiacco, and Brandon Douglas talking about SPL1, but also heavily featured in that episode are my feet. And I do this, I'm a foot fidgeter.
Oh, yeah.
So Gloria bothers me about this all the time. She teases me about it all the time. She's like, why are you doing that? Because I'll be sitting there and my feet will be doing this. They'll just be kind of like switching. And I just do it. I don't think about it. I just do it all the time. And then I get upset when she tells me and I'm like, no, now I'm like
now you're
really self-conscious about it. But yeah, she bothers me about it all the time. And sure enough, in this episode, I am doing all kinds of stuff with my feet, and they're up on a table, and I didn't realize that's how he's filming it, but that's what it is. So on Height Drop, on my episode, my feet are just doing sort of stuff, and there's a comment.
You should just pull it up.
If I can.
It took me by surprise.
There is an FF community.
Do you know what FF stands for?
I believe it stands for foot fetish. That's my guess. So, so this is a comment on Height Drop episode 115, SPL1 with Rene Scavington, Tom Coppola, Dylan Poland, and Vinny Fiacco. Love and Toes.
I didn't notice that.
Love and Toes is this person's handle.
Oh my god.
Wow, so many hot guys in socks. The guy in the black socks has no idea what he's doing for the FF community. Love it. Helped to focus on their conversation.
When I read that comment, I went and I found the episode, and I was like, oh, I gotta see who's the one in the black socks, and then I realized I'm not wearing socks at all. So he wasn't talking about me, and I'm or she, I don't know. So I feel left out. I feel very left out. I'm apparently not one of the hot guys because I'm not wearing socks.
I mean, I think you're part of the group.
Not according to the comment. If you read the comment carefully, it's excluding anyone without socks.
So I'm wondering with foot fetishes too, if there's a discrepancy between wearing, is there a whole sect of foot fetish people that are just way more into feet in socks?
Probably.
I got to read you what Brandon told me to do.
I imagine there is because. We should really be talking about
Brandon says, no, we can stop. But Brandon says, I suggest you prop your feet up during STS for views, and then add sockless bonus content behind a paywall.
Patreon.
That'll be my OnlyFans.
Let's do it. OnlyFans. Yeah, that's the.
We'll my foot shows.
Oh, so weird.
I could just set up a camera while I am on the couch at home, and they would get all of that. This would be a very low effort side hustle.
It's not a bad idea. We should just have a separate camera under the table. But like still have the conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to be done now. This was a fantastic conversation.
I was going to get into side hustles, but that's fine. We can be done.
Okay. Well, we covered a lot of topics today, more so than I realized we would. So what a great conversation this was. So if you liked this video, please like it on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a comment below and if you want access to Rene's OnlyFans. And we will catch you in the next episode.